So today I have some unsettling science news for you. New research has found that statins, specifically the lipophilic statins, which are so commonly prescribed for issues associated with high cholesterol like strokes and heart attacks, apparently these statins can increase your risk of developing dementia. If you're already experiencing cognitive decline and/or the early symptoms of dementia, taking these lipophilic statins can virtually double your risk of developing full-blown dementia. Now, the research behind these unsettling claims involved almost 400 patients, divided into groups based on baseline cognitive status, baseline cholesterol levels, and patient status regarding the use of statins. The patients were tracked and given regular PET scans over the course of 8 years, so as to monitor any changes in metabolism of certain areas of the brain. Metabolism is used as a gauge of brain activity, as any neural activity is going to use oxygen and nutrients, and this is going to lead to a dynamic, localized, surging increase in metabolic rate. And we can track that and be like, oh hey, this area is highly active at this point in time, what's going on? Now, the areas that they were looking at in particular were areas that are known to be prone to damage in Alzheimer's disease, such as the posterior cingulate cortex. To put this another way, they were looking at areas of the brain where gradual metabolic decline is associated with the development of Alzheimer's. So they had their statin variable that they were looking at in their patients. They could also measure their cognitive state, if they were entering dementia, early onset dementia, or in the painful grasp of dementia itself. But they also wanted to have some kind of neurobiological metric by which to gauge any of these differences. And so to do that, they were looking at this particular brain region that we know has metabolic degradation in Alzheimer's, in cases of dementia. So they're trying to get multiple metrics to try and measure this phenomenon from a bunch of different angles so that they can really be sure that what they're seeing is actually what's going on. So what are they seeing? Let's get into it. In the group with low baseline cholesterol levels, for example, so this was patients of varying cognitive status at the start, of varying statin use at the start. This group, all of the patients in this group had relatively low baseline cholesterol levels. Now, in this group, those patients who did not take any statins showed a 10% risk of developing dementia during the 8-year study period. So these people not taking statins are like the controls. And so it allows the researchers to say, okay, if you don't have any statin interference at all, no statin effects in your body, then we can expect roughly a 10% rate of developing dementia, at least within this window that we monitored. But other people in that low cholesterol group who were taking lipophilic statins, they showed a 24% increased risk of dementia. That's more than twice as much. Now, other statins, there's other types of statins besides these lipophilic statins. These other statins showed a dementia risk that was actually similar to the patients who weren't using any statins. Following the same pattern, lipophilic statin users showed a very strong statistical drop in metabolic activity in the posterior cingulate cortex, which was not seen in users of other statins or in those who did not use statins. Now remember, this was for the group with low baseline cholesterol levels. The group with high baseline cholesterol levels showed no significant difference in dementia risk between lipophilic statins, other statins, and the non-use of statins. Now this is pretty interesting, but it's not altogether unexpected, as there is evidence suggesting that cholesterol has a protective effect against dementia. So my biological intuition here is that those patients with high cholesterol could take a cholesterol-lowering drug like a lipophilic statin, and they would still have enough cholesterol to offer some protective benefit against dementia. There's enough still floating around in their system because the baseline levels were high. But in the patients who already have low cholesterol, taking a statin to further lower those cholesterol levels could actually push them into dangerous territory, where the protective effects against dementia are lost, and the risk of developing dementia increases substantially. Now, perhaps the reality is much more complicated than this, but as a general working model that we can test further, I think this makes sense. This is a pretty shocking finding, because almost 50% of Americans 75 years or older are on some kind of statin drug. And unfortunately, one of the most popular statin drugs is Lipitor, or atorvastatin, and this is a lipophilic statin. This brings to mind a worrying implication. There may be an unintentional pandemic of dementia among patients taking these lipophilic statins. but further research will be needed to determine the full extent of this problem. For now, let's consider what this means for patients taking statins with the words of lead researcher Prasanna Padmanabhan of the University of California, Los Angeles. Padmanabhan said, quote, "By characterizing the metabolic effects associated with statin use, we are providing a new application of PET to further our understanding of the relationship between one of the most commonly used classes of drugs and one of the most common afflictions of the aging brain. Findings from these scans could be used to inform patients' decisions regarding which statin would be most optimal to use with respect to preservation of their cognition and ability to function independently." Unquote.